Val Hemminger, welcome to I wish somebody would have told me that virtual summit. I am so happy that you are here as a divorce lawyer extraordinaire and mentor to many. Thank you for being on the summit.
Thank you, Patty Dominguez. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so excited.
Awesome. So for those viewers that are listening, they want to know more about you. Share with the audience, what is it that you do, like kind of your zone of genius, and why you believe this matters?
Sure. Okay. So I'm Val, and I've been a divorce lawyer for more than 25 years. Let's just say I have my 10,000 hours in and then some. And it is, I fell into it, but it is my absolute passion, meaning to be my dharma, my life's purpose to transform the family law industry. I say one family, one lawyer at a time, to transform it so that it is less combative, so that we change the narrative, all of it, so that people see, okay, you know what? We're not together in a relationship as a couple anymore, but we're still a family. It just looks a lot different than we expected it to. And so I've created this thing called the Better Divorce Company, and it has three pieces. My law firm, a little tiny law firm in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. And we act for parties who are separating and really trying to use court as a last resort. Combativeness, stay away from that if possible. And then two other pieces. One is that is coaching other divorce lawyers to run successful practices, because the more divorce lawyers are balanced and having a good life themselves, the better work that they do, which then impacts their clients, because being somebody's divorce lawyer is a very intimate experience. And the third piece is, of course, the business to consumer, the actually wanting to educate consumers about how to avoid getting caught up in what can be a toxic industry. There's so many myths out there. Oh, you want to, hire that most aggressive lawyer. Really? Do you? Do you want to drag your kids through a court system? Maybe you could just skip all that terribleness, right? So a lot of people don't realize that what the best lawyer is not, is not necessarily in their best interest or their family's best interest. And most importantly, their pocketbook's best interest. Well, actually, most importantly is the kids, but, so they unwittingly end up spending all this money when they could avoid so much of it.
So at what point, Val, I'm really curious, did you move from being a lawyer into expanding what you offer in terms of being a mentor to other lawyers? And I know now that you're stepping into providing more information and guidance on the consumer side.
Well, ironically, I got in trouble with my law society back in 2015. I broke some rules. They've come down hard on me for it. I had financial trouble, like falling. I made a business decision in 2009 and bit off more than I could chew. And I spent almost like many years just kind of like scrambling. It resulted in me breaking some rules. When that happened in the law society, like my bar, my state bar, or provincial bar, came down on me, I thought, oh, maybe I should look at doing other stuff. Meanwhile, what was happening is people would come into my office and they go, "Whoa, this place." Lawyers, not clients, because they don't know what to expect. But other lawyers would be like, "Whoa, this place is organized," and so they would be quite amazed. And also, because I had made this financial mistake, I ended up getting coached by a business coach many years ago, but then really studying marketing and running an effective business and all that kind of stuff. So I've actually managed to attract really great clients, and without spending a dime on advertising and very little energy, right? And so unlike most lawyers who are just throwing all these resources, money, effort to have a very ineffective marketing strategy, it doesn't work.
Right. That's awesome. And then in your opinion, what is a big struggle for people that are looking to get their business off the ground? So for example, entrepreneurs that have been in it, they've been slogging and just thinking like, what is it going to take for it to work? What do you think is the common or like one big struggle that they face?
Well, I think if I was to, say to an entrepreneur, hey, get ready, or I wish I knew this, the topic is that when, so when I thought, okay, you know what, I really want to create something outside of my one-on-one client work. My one-on-one client work is great. I love it. I love my clients. It's very exciting, but it's really tiring too, right? And I was thinking, wow, I'd really love to be able to leverage my time, that kind of thing. However, what I didn't realize is I expected it to be easy, like I expected it to be a heck of a lot easier than it is. And it's been challenging, like you wouldn't believe. And and I always think, oh, why isn't this working? Why is this so hard? Why does it take me so long to get a new lead? Wah, wah, wah. And what I realized is that my expectations were not in the right place. Because I knew I was taking action. I knew I was really dedicated to really dedicated to the cause, but my expectations were that this would just kind of, I don't know, do a funnel. And then all of a sudden the whole world would open up and I'd be, and I have a high ticket offer with the lawyers. And so they'd all be, cascading through my, through the door, so that hasn't happened. I have some students, which is great. And they're getting great results and it's wonderful, but my expectations were in the wrong place, and I was, listening to an audiobook the other day, and the person says it's going to be 10 times harder, 10 times more investment, 10 times more discouraging than you think. So actually, if I walked into it with that attitude, I would have felt less defeated.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's almost like the opposite. It's like expect the worst, but then if anything, you know what I mean?
Like you don't want to attract the worst. However, when when your launch doesn't work, or your email list isn't growing the way you want it to, or people are going, yeah, sure, I'll give you $5,000 to talk to me or to talk to you, all day long, it's like, it's handling the expectations and it's about handling the expectations and realizing, but when you stick with it, and if you really believe in it and you have a good product, like there's no way it won't succeed. It can't not.
Yeah. It's almost like the universe is testing how tenacious, how serious are you about this, right?
Totally. 100%.
In that process, it's teaching you so much about yourself as you're learning. Because I mean, think about this, Val. I know you and I were at the same event back in what, 2019 or 2018 or what? 2018. And we didn't know each other then or whatever, but you're such a different person than you were at that time in June of 2018 or whatever, right? Because you've grown, you've gone through it. So nobody can tell you what it's like to have your ads not work or the launch bomb or whatever. Like you can read about it all you want, but unless you go through it and you learn the lessons as a result of that, that's the stuff that's priceless, as much as it stings at times, but nobody can tell you what it's like because you've experienced it. And that's the thing that really matters, in my opinion.
And it makes you tough as nails, right?
Yes.
Because it's like, I did a launch last December. I put in a whole bunch of, tons of resources. I hired an ad guy, invested in ads, and we had this launch all prepared. It was going to be amazing. And of course, so when I was in Texas, a guy called me a cougar. And so I what? Because I'm at 55 years old, I'm out in the world. Like that makes me a cougar because I'm alive still. And so I posted an article on my social media saying something like, "Oh, I got called the dreaded C word," right? And I literally said C word. That's all it was, said C word. And then in family law, I tied it back to family law, which is the custody word, right? Because our legislation has gotten rid of the C word, the custody word. Right. I thought it was a very fun, a really great way of talking about the C word. And then I got put in Facebook jail at the beginning of my launch. So I have this group, this group launch that I can't get in. None of my team get in. So needless to say, that failed.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny. Actually, I'm sorry, it's funny but not funny, but it is funny.
No, it's totally and there was a time in my life that kind of thing would have flipped me out. And I'm like, okay, well, that happened. Okay, note to self: don't mention the C word in social media and Facebook. But also just that, it didn't send me into a tailspin at all. right?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so let's transition to the three. Damn, wish somebody would have told me that tips. What's your first tip in no particular order?
Oh, well, my first tip is that it's going to be harder than you think, and change your expectation, because that's fine, right? It's not for the faint of heart,
Yeah,
right?
love it.
And the second tip, which I think has been so important, is, accepting, like understanding the kind of brain that you have. And what I mean is that, when I used to hire, like what works for me and what doesn't, or my, like, so whenever I'm dealing with technology or learning a new app or something, literally, even when I say it, my energy just goes right, blah, and I realized, that whole thing about, actually, I'm not supposed to be doing that stuff, right? That is not my jam. Talking to people, connecting with them, writing, doing video, blabbing. I'm really great at that. And I get so fired up when I'm helping people in my industry. It's like, just like so excited. But then asking me how to learn Riverside.fm, I'm just like, And so what I realized is that, so the big thing is that when you start to expand your team, even if it's just a little bit, you want to do the personality testing of yourself and of your team. And so there's the DISC profile, DISC, that I learned from Jim Fortin or learned about through him. And then also the Colby, KOLBE.
Mhm.
And what I've done now is been able to balance, like this is in the office. It's in my digital team too, is that, everybody that has the DISC assessment, they have the Colby, so we know what we're dealing with, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really, really helpful. And it helps me understand, like for example, my two support staff, when I would ask them if they could help me with something, and they look at me like this, I used to think that was them being unsupportive, but really what they're doing is like, okay, yeah, okay, we're gonna do this. Okay, I gotta think this, like Val wants to do this. So they're actually thinking and not being mean,
Yeah.
right? But of
Yeah.
course I have an idea an hour. So, and also learning how to manage that too, right? And
That's
having
excellent.
agreements around
And
that.
and it gets you off of the whole thing. Like I used to do this too, and we've talked about it, where you hire someone because you like them. I'm like, that is the worst reason to hire anybody. So when you take those kind of tests, what it really the behavioral test, you find the yin to your yang, right? So the person that complements
Absolutely.
you. If you hire someone that's just like you, then you're both going to be doing the same thing, expecting a different result. Versus, I know my integrator is so amazing because she compliments me. She
Totally.
literally fits like a glove because she gets the things where I get stuck on, like the super
Yeah.
detail, the minutia, not my jam, so to speak. So it's
Yeah.
like, here, I'll take it over, right? The tech,
Oh,
detail, that kind of thing that really bogs me down energetically as well. So those tests and that whole process is priceless. Highly recommend. Totally agree.
yeah, absolutely. In fact, my right-hand person in my law office now, I mean, I wasn't even particularly, I just hired him as a temp originally. And I wasn't particularly, didn't think he'd be that great. Well, now I'm just like, what have I ever done without this person in my life? In the sense, he's so helpful about everything.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's
Yeah.
great. All right. What is your tip number three?
Taking absolute 100% radical responsibility. So what I'm saying about that is we can't go, oh, my business isn't doing what I want it to do, or, I'm not a bajillionaire, or whatever our whine is because of the economy, or because you can't get good people to help you, or because nobody has any money right now, or because back in the olden days in 2020, it was the pandemic. The thing is that you have to take 100% responsibility, like radical responsibility. And I got this, the big thing that I learned is that, it's weird. My firm, this one year made $1.2 million gross, like real money coming in the door. And I've made 77 grand of all of that, working 40-hour weeks, 50 weeks a year, like busting it. Right. And then when the pandemic happened, I started to look at my numbers going, like, why is it that I bring in all this stuff and I only make this little percentage? And maybe my billings were like 300 or 400 grand, So why am I making less than 10% of what I bring in the door? I pay my associates 60% of what they bring in the door, to give you an idea. So, so let's just say I'd be quite swimmingly comfortable if I made 60%. So I started looking at my numbers. And what I realized, well, a bunch of things is that, I was paying for an outdated server, $3,000-$4,000 a month. I had all these ridiculous expenses. Plus I found out my team, one person was using the firm credit card to do their personal Amazon shopping, and they're padding their hours. Like I was paying tons of overtime, even though the person wasn't even working full-time at all.
Oh my God.
And so I could get very mad at those people about that. But what I circle back around to is that, wait, they knew they had an employer who wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
And so it is my responsibility, And although that was a tough pill to swallow, it was good learning, because now I show up as someone who's paying attention, right?
Yeah.
What is this number? Like I have a weekly scorecard that has everything on it now, right? What's the revenue? What are the big expenditures?
Great.
What's the staff? What are they billing for their time? What are their hours that they're billing me for? Yeah.
Great. I love it, Val. It's so important. And it's like, unfortunately, we have to learn the lessons in that way, right? Sometimes you just like, what was I thinking? Or how did I let it get this far out of control, so to speak? So I'm glad, because now you're obviously on the other side of that. So really, really good tips. So the radical responsibility. The second one is those behavioral tests like DISC and Colby that Val mentioned. And then the first one is really controlling the expectations, right?
Yeah.
Just being realistic about what's happening in your business so that you're not, I almost think like, it's almost like if you're in delusion of what it takes. And it's hard to do that in a way, because there's people out there promising grandeur and the silver bullets, and it's very enticing. And then the marketing's out there and it's super sexy. You're like, oh, this is the thing I need in order to make $1 gajillion in a week, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be, or I always say, you have to stand guard at the doorway of your mind and make sure that you're rock solid in your conviction, your direction, your focus. That's something that we talk about all the time. So thank you, Val, for this. How do people find out more about you and how you are revolutionizing the divorce industry?
Well, thank you, Patty. You can go to thebetterdivorceproject.com. And that is the B2C, that is the end user. So if you're going through a separation or divorce and are looking for some tools, like I've got stuff on there about, how do you choose the best divorce lawyer? What do you need to do to get ready? In terms of for your first meeting with a divorce lawyer. I mean, it's just amazing to me how many people, like, they'll come to me, they're paying $500 an hour, and they'll come to me and they want to, let's just say, revise an agreement. And I'll say, oh, do you have it with you? And they'll say, oh yeah, I should have brought that. I'm thinking, yeah, you should have. Anyway, so just that, it's like, wow. Anyway, and I'm not saying that about your listeners, that they wouldn't, have it together, but I've got like a checklist about all that stuff. Right. And then be the best divorce lawyer. And so the be the best divorce lawyer is where tools, hacks, strategies, ways of being, where divorce lawyers can do really good work for the families that we help, because they're still families. They just look different than they expect.
Excellent. So the links on how to connect with Val, including her social media links, are going to be right below this video. Connect with Val. She's super fun. I always see like a big heart on legs. You're all heart.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's true. It's really, really true. And very passionate about this. And, I know kids are better off because of the work I do. So
love it.
Thanks
Val,
for having
thank
me,
you
Patty.
so much. Absolutely. Thank you for being on the summit. And I really, really appreciate you.
Mwah.